Hello everyone. In this video, I will solve the computer exercises of chapter 3 of the book Introductory Econometrics by Jeffrey Woolridge, and the chapter name is Multiple Regression Analysis Estimation. Okay, so in our studio, I have set up my working directory in the econometrics folder present in the D drive, and then you have to install these packages Woolridge and Deployer, and then call these libraries through this library function. Now let's go to the question number 1. The question number 1 utilizes birth weight dataset from the Woolridge library. So, and in this birth weight database, there is also a column named birth weight by the same name, BWGHT. Therefore, will have to use different names for the dataset and this data column. So let's assign this. Let's make a new. Let's give the database a new name by the name of birth weight underscore data, and then use this assignment operator Woolridge double colon BWGST. So this is our data set now. Now let's attach this data set. Now let's see what is the first question. Okay, so in this question, in this question, birth weight of infant health is being measured, and cigarettes represent the number of cigarettes smoked by a pregnant mother, and FAM-INC refers to family income. So what is the first question? What is the most likely sign for B2? B2 here is a coefficient of family income. So probably I think B2 must be greater than 0, because more income typically means better nutrition for the mother and better parental care. So if family income is more, then birth weight is likely to be more of infants. Therefore B2 should be greater than 0. Now the second question is, do you think sex and family income are likely to be correlated? Explain why the correlation might be positive or negative. Okay, on the one hand, an increase in income generally increases the consumption of a good, and cigarettes and family income could be positively correlated because cigarette is just a commodity. Okay, so more income gives more purchasing power to buy more cigarettes. And on the other hand, family incomes are also higher for families with more education, and more education and cigarette smoking tend to be negative correlated. Therefore it can also be negative in this sense, because more family income means more education, and more education leads to reduced cigarette consumption. And let's see what is the actual correlation between cigarettes and family income by typing this function core cigarettes and family income. The correlation is minus 0.17. Therefore there's a negative correlation between cigarettes and family income in this data set, and this correlation is also very weak. 17% is very weak correlation. Now let's see the third question. Now estimate the equation with and without family income using the data in BWGST. Report the results in equation form including sample sizes and R squared. Discuss your results focusing on whether adding family income substantially changes the estimated effects of cigarettes on BWGST, birth weight, that is. Okay, now let's create a model by the name of birth model. But first you have to assign this the birth weight column in this data set by the new name. Let's call this birth underscore weight assignment operator. Use this data set name that we have just created, birth weight underscore data $sign BWGST. Now we can create this model, birth model. Use the assignment operator LM, that is linear model, in the bracket birth weight tilde cigarettes. So this is the model without family income. Now let's see the summary of this birth model. Here we can see the intercept is 119.77, and the coefficient on cigarettes is minus 0.51, and the R squared value is 0.02. And what is the number of observations? 1388. Okay, now let's see the model with family income. Let's create a new model by the name of birth underscore model INC, that is income. Use this assignment operator LM birth weight tilde cigarettes plus family income. Family income is one more independent variable, therefore we will use the plus operator and then type this family income. Press Ctrl plus enter. Okay, BWGST. Okay, we have to use birth weight. Okay, now press Control plus Enter. Let's summarize this model. Here the intercept is 116.97 and the coefficient on cigarettes is minus 0.46 and the coefficient on family income is 0.092 and the R squared value is 0.029. That is almost equal to 0.03 and the observations will remain the same. Okay, now what do you infer from these results? Adding family income, what happened after adding family income to the above model? Okay, you can see that the effect of cigarette smoking is slightly smaller when family income is added to the regression, but the difference is not that great. This may be due to the fact that cigarettes and family income are not very correlated, and the coefficient on family income is practically small. Okay, remember this that family income is being measured in thousands of dollars. So 10,000s of more in 1988 income increases predicted birth weight by only 0.93 ounces. Birth weight is being measured in ounces and family income is being measured in thousands of dollars. So look at this coefficient, it's so small. Even if $10,000 income, 10,000, if even if income increases by $10,000, then the birth weight will only increase by 0.93 ounces, which is very small. Okay, so we are done with this question. Let's detach this data set. Now coming to the second question. The second question utilizes the data set h price 1. So let's call this data set from the package Woolrich by typing the command data in the bracket, use double quotes h price 1 and then package Woolrich. Press Ctrl plus enter. Then attach this data set. Now let's look at the question. Write out the results in equation form. Okay, the equation price is the y variable, explained variable. It is being estimated by square feet, and the second variable is bedrooms, number of bedrooms. Okay, so the price of a house is being predicted by two variables. One is square feet and the second variable is bedrooms, number of bedrooms. Okay, so now let's create a model by the name of house price underscore model. Use this assignment operator, then lm, type price and then tilde square feet plus bedrooms, BDRMS. Press Ctrl plus enter. Now let's look at the summary of this model. In this model, the intercept is minus 0.31 and the coefficient on square feet is 0.128 and the coefficient on bedrooms is 15.19 and the number of observations in this model is 88. There are 88 houses, okay, in this data set, and the R square value is 0.632. Now let's look at the second question. What is the estimated increase in price for a house with one more bedroom holding square footage constant? Okay, so holding square footage constant, price increases by the coefficient on bedrooms, okay, 15.20 into change in bedrooms. So the change in bedroom is only 1 in this question, so we will multiply this into 15.20. So the estimated change in price is 15.20, which means $15,200. Okay, because the price is being measured in thousands of dollars, so estimated increase in price is $15,200. Now let's look at the third question. What is the estimated increase in price for a house with an additional bedroom that is 140 square feet in size? Okay, so for this we can estimate the change in price by multiplying the coefficient on square feet into change in square feet and then adding the number of bedrooms added. So the answer will be 0.128 into 140. Okay, this is the square feet plus 15.20, because only one bedroom is being added. This variable will be this number change in bedroom will be 15.20. Now let's look at the answer. The answer is 33.12 or $33,120. So estimated change in price in this question is $33,120. Because the size of the house is also increasing, this is a much larger effect than in the second question. Okay, Now let's look at the fourth question. What percentage of the variation is price is explained by square footage and number of bedrooms? The answer of this question is r squared, and we had seen in the earlier section the r squared value is 0.63, that is 63.2%. Now let's look at the fifth question. The first house in the sample has square feet equals to 2.2438 and number of bedrooms equal to 4. Find the predicted selling price for this house from the OLS regression line. Okay, so the predicted selling price will be calculated by this equation. The intercept is minus 19.32 plus the coefficient on square feet 0.128, and the square feet in the question is 2438 plus the coefficient on a bedroom variable 15.20 into the bedroom number of bedrooms in this question is 4. So this will give us the answer of this question. So the answer is 353.544, that is $353,544. Now let's look at the sixth question. The sixth question says the actual selling price of the first house in the sample was $300,000. So price equals to 300. Find the residual for this house. Does it suggest that the buyer underpaid or overpaid for the house? Okay, the predicted selling price for the first house from the above equation is 353. Okay, so 353 minus the actual selling price was 300, so the answer is $53,000. Okay, so it means that the actual it means that the actual selling price was $300,000, which suggests that the buyer underpaid by some margin. Okay, the actual selling price is 353,000 and the actual selling price is $300,000 and the predicted price is 353. Therefore buyer underpaid by some margin. But of course there are some other features of a house, so that we cannot even measure that affect price, and we have not control for this. Okay, so that's why, so 53,000 is the residual and buyer has underpaid by some margin for the house. Now let's detach this data set. Now coming to question number 3, it utilizes dataset CEO Cell 2. It contains data on 177 chief executive officers, and it can be used to examine the effects of firm performance on CEO salary. Okay, now let's call this dataset by typing CEO Cell 2 from the package voltage, press Ctrl plus Enter and attach this dataset. Okay, now look at the first question. It says to estimate a model relating annual salary to firm sales and market value, and it says make the model of the constant elasticity variety for both independent variables. So it means that all the variables will be in logarithm form. So let's create a model by the name of salary underscore model. Use this assignment operator and then lm, that means linear model, in the bracket log salary tilde log sales plus log market value. Press Ctrl plus Enter. Let's summarize this model. Okay, in this model we can see that the intercept is 4.62 and the coefficient on log sales is 0.162 and the coefficient on market value, log market value, is 0.106 and it is almost 0.107, and the r squared value is 0.299. It is almost 0.3. Okay, and now look at the second question. Add profits through the model from part first, and why can this variable not be included in logarithmic form? Would you say that these firm performance variables explain most of the variation in CEO salaries? Okay, now let's create a new model. We have to add profits to this model. So let's create a model by the name of salary underscore model profits. Use this assignment operator, and in the right hand side we have to add one more variable by the name of profits. Okay, press Ctrl plus Enter and then summarize this model. Okay, now look at the second part of this question. Why can this variable not be included in logarithmic form? Because logarithmic form of only positive variables can be taken. Log of 0 and negative variables do not exist, and there are various firms where profits have been reported in negative values. Therefore we cannot include this variable in logarithmic form. We will have to include this variable in level form, in its original form. Okay, and would you say that these firm performance variables explain most of the variation in CEO salaries? Okay, so in this case also The R squared value is 0.299. It's the same almost. And together these variables explain almost 30% of the sample variation in log salary. So this is certainly not most of the variation. Now look at the third part of the question. Add the variable CEO10 to the model in part second. What is the estimated percentage return for another year of CO tenure holding other factors fixed? Okay, so it basically is asking about the coefficient on the variable CEO10. Okay, so let's create a new model by the name of new salary underscore model. Use this assignment operator and then use all the variables from the previous part and just add one more variable CEO10 to the right hand side. Okay, then press control plus enter, and then let's summarize this model. Now look at the coefficient on CEO10. It is 0.0116. So it is almost equivalent to 0.012, and the R squared value is 0.318. So it means that one more year as CEO increases predicted salary by about 1.2%. Look at this coefficient 0.0116. It is almost equal to 0.012. Okay, so the predicted salary, the predicted increase in salary by having one more year as CEO increases your salary by about 1.2%. Now look at this. Find the sample. Look at the next part of the question. Find the sample correlation coefficient between the variables log market value and profits. Are these variables highly correlated? What does this say about the OLS estimators? Now let's look at the correlation between these two variables. The correlation is 0.77, and yes, it is a very high correlation. These variables are highly correlated. Now what does it mean about these OLS estimators? As we know, this causes no bias in the OLS estimators, although it can cause their variances to be large. Given the fairly substantial high correlation between market value and firm profits, it is not too surprising that the latter adds nothing to explaining CEO salaries. And also, profits is a short-term measure of how the firm is doing, while market value is based on past, current, and expected future profitability. Okay, we are done with this question. Now let's detach this dataset. Coming to question number 4. In this question, the dataset is used attend. Let's call this dataset by using the command data attend and package Woolrich. Press Control plus enter, and then attach this dataset. Now, what is the first question? What is the first part of this question? It says obtain the minimum, maximum, and average values for the variables attendance rate, prior GPA, and ACT score. So let's create a data frame. Let's create a new data frame by the name of attend table, and then use this assignment operator, and then type data.frame. In the bracket, we will create a column by the name of names, and then create a vector, and the variable names are attendance rate, prior GPA, and ACT score, and then create a new column name average, and it will include the mean of these variables, and then create a new column minimum. It will include the minimum of these values, and then create a new column by the name of maximum, and it will include the maximum values of these variables. Then press Ctrl plus enter, and then just type attend table so that we can see the structure of this table. Okay, so these are the names of these variables. These are the average values, and these are the minimum values, and the most right hand side column includes the maximum values. The second part of this question is estimate the model attendance rate equals to prior GPA and ACT score. Okay, so attendance rate is being predicted by your prior GPA. It is one independent variable, and the other independent variables is your ACT score. Okay, now let's create a model by the name of attend underscore model, and attend rate tilde prior GPA plus ACT score. Press Ctrl plus enter. Let's summarize this model. And what does it say? Interpret the intercept. Does it have a useful meaning? The intercept here is 75.7, and the coefficient on prior GPA is 17.26, and the coefficient on ACT score is minus 1.7. Okay, so the intercept here means that for a student whose prior GPA is 0 and ACT score is 0, the predicted attendance rate is 75.7%. But this is clearly not an interesting segment of the population. Okay, in fact, there are no students in the college population with prior GPA equals to 0 and ACT equal to 0, or with values even close to 0. Okay, so the third part is discuss the estimated slope coefficients. Are there any surprises? The coefficient on prior GPA means that if a student's prior GPA is 1 point higher, say from 2 to 3, suppose it increases from 2 to 3, the attendance rate is about 17.3 percentage higher. Okay, this holds ACT fixed. ACT score is fixed, and if prior GPA increases 1 point from 2 to 3, then the attendance rate will increase by 17.3 percentage. And the negative coefficient on ACT is perhaps initially a bit surprising. 5 more points on the ACT is predicted to lower attendance rate by 8.6 percentage points at a given level of prior GPA. As prior GPA measures performance in college and at least partially could reflect past attendance rate, while ACT is a measure of potential in college, it appears that students that had more promise, which could mean more innate ability, think they can get by with missing lectures. Okay, so this was the explanation behind this slope coefficients. Now, what is the predicted attendance rate if prior GPA equals to 3.65 and ACT score equal to 20? What do you make of this result? Are there any students in the sample with these values of the explanatory variables? Okay, now let's see first these. Let's calculate attendance rate with these values. In the model, the intercept is 75.7, and the coefficient on prior GPA is 17.267, and the value in this question for prior GPA is 3.65, and the coefficient on ACT score is minus 1.72, and the value for attendance and the value for ACT score is 20. What will be the attendance rate? It is 104.32. Okay, so it is impossible value. A student obviously cannot have higher than 100% attendance rate, and getting predictions like this is always possible when using regression methods for dependent variables with natural upper or lower bounds. Okay, so in practice we would predict a 100% attendance rate for the student. Now look at this part of the. Now let's check, are there any students in the sample with these values of the explanatory variables? We can do this by two methods. First, we can use the filter function from the dplyr library. Okay, type filter and then in the bracket type the dataset name attend, and ACT value should be equal to 20, and there is also one more condition, the prior GPA should be equal to or greater than 3.65. So now let's check. Okay, there is one student with these values and the attendance rate of this student is 87.5%, and we can do this by another method. Type the dataset name attend and then type these conditions, prior GPA should be greater than equal to 3.65 in the square bracket. Okay, type these values in the square bracket, and there is one more condition, ACT value should be equal to 20, and then type comma and then close this square bracket, type control plus enter, and this gives us the same result. There is the student with these values and the attendance rate is 87.5. Okay, we are now done with this question, so now let's detach this. Okay, there's one more question. Okay, let's look at the fifth part of this question. If a student A has prior GPA 3.1 and ACT score 21, and student B has prior GPA 2.1 and ACT 26, what is the predicted difference in their attendance rate? Okay, the intercept in both the students will be the same. So we have to now calculate the difference between only these values, these independent variable values. So now the coefficient on prior GPA was 17.26. In the bracket, the difference should be 3.1 minus 2.1, and then type minus 21 minus 26. Press Ctrl plus Enter. Okay, this will be like this, 22.26. Okay, what was the coefficient on ACT score? It was 1.72. Okay, the answer is 25.86. So difference between the attendance rate of these two students is 25.86. Now we are done with this question. So now let's detach this data set. Now coming to question number 5, it utilizes the data set wage 1 from the package Woolridge. Okay, so call this data set and attach this data set. Now what does it say? It says confirm the partialing out interpretation of the OLS estimates by explicitly doing the partialing out for example 3.2. Now this first requires regressing education on experience and tenure and saving the residuals R by the name of R hat 1, and then regress log wage on R hat 1, and then compare the coefficient on R at 1 with the coefficient on education in the regression of log wage on education, experience and tenure. Okay, so let's first create a model by the name of wage underscore model, and in this model education is being regressed on experience and tenure. So education is being explained by experience and tenure, and summarize this model. In this model we can see that the estimate is the intercept is 13.57, and the coefficient on experience is minus 0.07, and coefficient on tenure is 0.048. Now let's create a model by the name of log wage underscore model, and in this model we will regress log wage on the residuals from the previous model. So type this log wage and tilde, and then use this command resid, and then in the bracket wage model. So this function resid will call the residual values from the previous model. Press Ctrl plus Enter and then summarize this model. In this model the intercept is 1.62, and the coefficient on residual values from the previous model is 0.092. Okay, now let's see what was the coefficient on education from this example 3.2. So I have created a new model by the name of old log wage model, and in this model log wage is regressed on education, experience and tenure, 3 variables. Press Ctrl plus Enter and summarize this model. So in this model we can see that the coefficient on education is 0.092. Okay, and the coefficient on the residual values is also 0.092. So what does this mean? It means that the coefficient on R hat 1 in the second regression is identical to the coefficient on education from the example 3.2. Okay, so it means that the regression of log wage on R at 1 explains log wage using only the part of education that is uncorrelated with experience and tenure. So separate effects of experience and tenure are not included in this model. Okay, so it confirms the partialing out interpretation of the OLS estimates in the multiple regression analysis. So any coefficient in the multiple regression analysis of this variable explains the variation caused by only that variable by holding other factors fixed. And what we have done in this question, it explains, it confirms this partialing out interpretation. Okay, so now we are done with this question. Let's detach this data set. Thanks for watching this video. If you like my videos, then subscribe to this channel, and also you can follow me on different social media platforms. I have mentioned this link in my description box. Thank you.